the dear friend Rukmini. I'll read her official bio and then say a few words. So Rukmini Walker is a teacher of Bhakti Yoga, an activist in interfaith dialogue, and a women's spiritual empowerment. She's the founder of the Urban Devi Collective, an online women's group originally based out of the Bhakti Center in New York, where she's a member of the board of directors. At the age of 16, so just a couple of years ago, I think, no, a long time ago, at the age of 16, she met her guru, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and began a lifelong study of Bhakti Yoga, living in and managing yoga ashrams in India, Canada, and the US. For 25 years, she owned and managed award-winning boutiques in the Washington, D.C. area called As Kindred Spirits. She believes that truth and beauty are kindred spirits, and that each serves the other to bless the world in the spirit of an eco-bhakti. For many years, Rukmini, along with her son, the kirtan artist Gauravani, who we met the other day, has led international groups to India, traveling to holy places and teaching Bhakti Yoga. She and her husband have chaired Vaishnava Christian and Vaishnava Muslim dialogues for many years in both the DC area and in India. Rukmini is a member of the Sabha, an advisory group to governing body commission of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. She lives in the Washington, D.C. area along with her husband, who we also get to meet in a few weeks. And it's such an honor to have you here with us, dear Rukmini. You've become a dear friend, these past couple of years, and more so even than the friend, an important Shiksha guru for me. And those who don't know the term, Shiksha guru is someone who acts as a spiritual teacher, an instructing teacher, a guide on the journey of bhakti, and you've very much been that for me. And of course, we were first connected through our mutual dear friend, Atreya Rishi Prabhu, which was just a divine intervention that, we met, and then he connected with us. And it seems like once you get on this path of bhakti, like Krishna, divinity just brings the right people into our lives. And it also turns out that you were good friends with my academic advisor, Professor Francis Clooney, who's one of the final speakers of the conference. And personally, I'm just so grateful for your presence in my life. In particular, the feminine presence. It's important, to have, different leaders, different guides, different mentors. And you really bring that motherly love and motherly presence on my spiritual journey. And very fitting, today's title is The Divine Feminine. And so my friends who are here live with us, if you're ready to get started with Rukmini Walker, throw your arms in the air and loudly chant, Haribol!
Oh, Haribol.
Amazing. Welcome, Rukmini. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Jack. And I think you're making us all happy by sharing this beautiful bhakti. So happy Jack is making us all more happy. So I wanted to thank you so much for inviting me to this conference. I'm so grateful to you. And I wanted to share a few prayers of gratitude to the line of teachers, the bhakti teachers who've come before me. I want to seek blessings before speaking. So I'm going to turn on my little mini tambura here. Chant a few prayers in Sanskrit, then I'll say something in English that I want to share as well. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chaksun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manubhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sapadantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindhu Vayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So I wanted to share one other prayer that's very important for me. This is a time of suffering for many, many people in the world, the people of Gaza, the people of Ukraine, many places in the world, Africa. And I live in Washington, D.C., and many, many people are suffering here in this area, losing their jobs. And I wanted to share a beautiful prayer from the little boy saint, Sri Prahlad Maharaj, that's in the 7th canto of or actually this prayer is in the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And I love this prayer because it's kind of a prayer for all of us. So here's what he says, and I'll just say it in English. May the entire universe be blessed with peace and good hope. May everyone driven by envy and enmity become pacified and reconciled. May all living beings develop abiding concern for the welfare of others. May our own hearts and minds be filled with purity and serenity. May all these blessings flow naturally from this supreme benediction. May our attention become spontaneously absorbed in the rapture of pure love unto the transcendent Lord. So I hope you like that prayer as much as I do. So Jack asked me to tell my story. I was one of the early disciples of Srila Prabhupada, so maybe my story is a little bit interesting. I was raised by loving parents in a suburb of Chicago, Highland Park, Illinois. And I'd say they tried to understand me, but I couldn't really figure out what was going on in the world. I couldn't understand what was driving people to do what they're doing, their work, their play, the country clubs, the goals of their lives just seemed to me to be so petty and unreal. And when I reflect back on it, I kind of feel like at the time, I kind of felt like I was dropped from another planet. Yeah, I just couldn't figure it out. And I was reading voraciously from many spiritual traditions, and of course I was searching. And in particular, one book was very important for me. It was a book that I read called The Way of a Pilgrim. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that book, but it's from the Russian Orthodox tradition. And it tells the story of a Russian pilgrim who once heard that it was possible to chant the Holy Jesus prayer incessantly. So the prayer is, Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on me. And he was walking through Russia, and his only possessions were a loaf of bread, a bag of salt, and the Jesus prayer on his lips, until the book said it became synchronized with his heartbeat. So I was so enchanted by that. And I was trying to do it. I was trying to do it while I was swinging on swings at my middle school. But I'd say that was my first experience of what we in the Bhakti tradition call mantra meditation. So mantra, the word mantra, it's a repetition of sacred names of God. It's a Sanskrit word that means mind, mantra, it means mind deliverance. So maybe you're familiar, many spiritual traditions, the Orthodox tradition, the Catholic tradition, Buddhist tradition, Islam, have similar practices honoring the holy name of God. So really, I was seeking to understand who I am and what my purpose here, what is my purpose here in this world. And I'd say I was looking for unconditional love. And isn't that what most of us are really seeking to love and be loved for who we really are, without the masks, without the games. And so yeah, this was in the late 60s. It was a time in the US. It was a time of revolution. It was a time of upheaval. And I'm thinking almost now, this is also a time of upheaval. And often during times of upheaval, people look inward. So I hope that might be a result of the upheaval that's happening in the world today. But, you know, people of my age, we had friends that were being sent off to die in a senseless war in Vietnam. And so it really sounds very extreme these days if I tell you, but I left home when I was 15. And I met my guru, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada, when I was 16. And I met him in Montreal, Canada. And I was introduced to him by a lovely woman devotee, Yamuna Devi. And she said, at that time we called him Swamiji. So she said, Swamiji, this is Wendy, and she's only 16 years old, and she would like to become your disciple. And it's amazing to me. But the first thing he said to me, very tenderly, he said, but where are your parents? Where are your parents? You know? So he was feeling the pain of my parents who were so far away, such compassion. And then a few days later at my initiation, he told me, he said, you are a beautiful girl. And then he gave me an instruction for a lifetime. He said, now become more beautiful within also. So I'm working on that. I'm trying for that. Another nice story is once in New York City. So maybe you know that the first Hare Krishna temple was a tiny little storefront in, welcome to the cats, welcome. Yeah, so the first Hare Krishna temple was a little tiny storefront almost right off the Bowery in New York City. And Prabhupada had a small rented apartment in the back through a courtyard. And so a few of his students were in this apartment one evening, and he was looking into each of our faces very intently, with great intention. And he said, I want each one of you to open a temple somewhere. And again, I was only 16 years old, and I just blurted out, I said, even the girls, Swamiji? And maybe I had no idea of feminism at that time, but he was laughing and he said, there is no difference between the boys and the girls when you are sharing Krishna consciousness, which is the name he gave the Bhakti path. He said, there is no difference. And he began to speak about Janava Devi, who was a great spiritual leader during, just after the time of Lord Chaitanya, and how she was leading the entire mission, the Hare Krishna mission, the Sankirtan movement. So he spoke about her. And so she has always been to me a great mentor, especially since he spoke about her to me so early in my spiritual life. Another nice story I'd like to share. I was serving in Boston, Jackson, Boston. So I was serving in the Boston temple at one time. And it seemed Prabhupada was visiting for a few days. And it seemed to me that all he was speaking about was just try to become sincere, just try to become sincere. And in fact, it's a very important principles on the path of bhakti: sincerity, simplicity, and being without ulterior motive, being straightforward, not having any hidden agenda. So I kept hearing him say this, try to become sincere. And so finally I asked him, I said, but Prabhupada, how do we become sincere? And again, he looked at me with a little twinkle in his eye and he said, how do you become a thief? And I was so shocked. I said, well, you would, hang with thieves. You would learn to do what they do. You would practice. You would learn to talk the way they talk and eat what they eat and learn their best techniques and practice. So he said, he's laughing and he said, yes, so you must practice. If you practice being sincere, then you eventually become sincere. And another little story that I think is important to share here is that once I had a beautiful picture of a goddess and I didn't know who she was. And I asked him, who is this goddess? And he told me that she is Bhakti Devi, an expansion of Sri Radha, the divine feminine or the feminine divinity. So isn't it interesting that the very process of Bhakti Yoga is herself a goddess, expanded from Sri Radha, the divine feminine goddess. So just to wrap up about me, so I've lived and I've served in the US and Canada and India as an artist, as a priest. I've owned designer galleries in the DC metro area for 25 years. And these days, my work in the world and what's really an inspiration for me is this project that Jack mentioned, Urban Devi, which is meant to uplift the voices of contemporary women in the 21st century through the path of Bhakti Yoga. So that's what I'm inspired to do right now. So yeah, to speak about this divine feminine, this feminine divinity. So who is she and who am I, or who are we in relationship to her? And I was thinking, you must have heard in your yoga training that our true nature is Sat, Chit, and Ananda, or eternity, knowledge, and joy, or bliss. So I was pondering this and I was thinking, imagine if you lived eternally, maybe even with some degree of knowledge, but without any joy or bliss. What would that experience feel like? It might actually feel like some kind of an eternal hell when you think about it. So Bhakti Yoga is the path for cultivating spiritual emotions that culminate in overwhelming bliss or joy. And when those emotions are offered up to the source of us all, in Bhakti we call that source Krishna or Govinda, the divine masculine, and Sri Radha is the divine feminine, counter whole, not counterpart, but counter whole of Krishna. She's the joy, she's the pleasure, potency of Krishna. And our intrinsic nature is this eternity, knowledge, and joy. And we are expanded from her. So that joy, is actually coming from her. So our true nature is that we are eternal, we are individual, shining molecular particles of spirit. And we're meant for giving joy or pleasure to divinity or Radha Krishna. So I think it's a very interesting counterintuitive mystery of this bhakti path, I'd say, that the more we try to give pleasure, the more we receive it. Or the more you give love, the more you get love. And it reminds me, did you ever play when you were a child with one of those little straw Chinese finger puzzles? You put it on your finger and then you struggle to pull it off. And the more you try to pull it off, the more it gets stuck. But then the more you let go, the easier it is to get free. And I was thinking of this as almost a metaphor that when we try to control this world, as try to control other people, try to control circumstance, and really kind of isolate and put myself on a pedestal as the enjoyer, the controller, then it just lends so much trouble and struggle to my life. But as soon as we let go and realize that I'm actually a servant of divinity, then that joy can begin to surface in our hearts. And yeah, I read this beautiful quote from the French philosopher Pascal. I want to share it with you. He says, "We all place ourselves at the center of everything. Because we do that, we are actually unjust. There are no virtues in us." Yeah, reflect on that. He says, worse still, we want everyone else in the world to recognize that I am at the center. And in that way, we become obnoxious or intolerable for others. And that is our difficulty. So yeah, so I think this is our illusion, and our degradation is when we try to become controllers, or when we isolate, we come under this illusion of false ego, thinking we are separate from the divine or our source, that I can control things separately from God. And our happiness is when we can reconnect with divinity. So this duality kind of propels us into the material realm, like the biblical story of the prodigal son. So I'd say prodigal son or prodigal daughter. We have a spiritual amnesia. We've forgotten our identity, our loving home. We're like wandering homeless beggars. just strangers in a strange land. I don't know if I speak to all of us, but I think many of us feel that. The Franciscan Father Richard Rohr says something really interesting. He says, we all come into this world with a God-sized hole in our hearts, and we keep trying to fill it up with other relationships or things that tend to fail us, or addictions, or maybe workaholic tendencies, or shopping, or drugs, or alcohol. But we're missing, oh, there's a dog. Good, we have a cat and a dog. Hello to the dog, yeah. But so we're missing our, yeah, a lot of people get a dog because they don't have any friends. You guys have friends, but some people, it's recommended, get a dog if you have a friend. But anyway, we're missing our original relationship with our supreme beloved by any name, right? And in Bhakti, in our Bhakti understanding, at the center of all existence is this beautiful love affair, a dance between Sri Radha, the divine feminine, and Sri Krishna, the divine masculine. Sri Radha is the internal bliss or joy or pleasure potency of Lord Krishna. And Radha and Krishna are inseparable. It's described as inseparable as a rose is to its fragrance. So God is one, but they become two in order to exchange these joyous, loving pastimes or play. And what's our nature? Again, we're eternal individual souls called jivas, and we're their expansions. And we're born out of their love, not born into sin, according to the Bhakti path, but born with a birthright of love. But we've just forgotten it. We've forgotten that we're born to give and receive love. They're the original source, they're our parents, and we are their children. And we're expanded from the energy of the divine feminine, this pleasure potency who is Sri Radha. I see someone has a hand up. We'll have time for questions at the end. So please hang on to your thought or your reflection or your question. So yeah, we jiva souls, these individual souls are called jiva souls, and we are described to be like a marginal energy. We have free will to choose to love or to lean away from love, because love has to be free, right? Love can never be forced. We can choose to be influenced by spiritual or material energy. We can choose to lean into the sun or lean out to the shadow. And we're free to lean into their love or lean out in isolation. So there's a nice example of this, if I can give you a good visual. Imagine that you're on an ocean beach, and there's the ocean, and then there's the dry sand, and then there's the part of the beach that's sometimes covered with sand, and sometimes dry sand, and sometimes covered by the ocean. So we're like that marginal place, that marginal energy. We can choose to be immersed in this ocean of spiritual love and joy, or we can lean out to isolate and become dry in our lives. Yeah. Or another example that's given that's nice is like a spark in relationship to the fire. The spark's not the whole fire. So God is like the big fire. Radha Krishna, like the big fire. We're like little sparks. And when we're in relationship with the big fire, then we're dancing and we're bright. But when we isolate, we can go cold and dark, or as Jesus said, or someone said in the Bible, the soul that sinneth dieth, right? So it's not that we ever really die, but we can go cold and dark and isolated. So this path of bhakti is defined as a loving responsiveness. I love that. And what's the goal of bhakti? I'd say the goal is an opening of the heart, an offering of the heart. And bhakti is, maybe you know this word from your yoga practice, bhakti is upasana, or meditation that's been saturated with priti, or affection. Bhakti Devi is the direct expansion of Sri Radha, and she expands as Bhakti Devi. Radha expands as Bhakti Devi, showing us the path to approaching Krishna in loving service. She's helping us and blessing our every step toward Krishna and herself. She is the guru. Sri Radha is, and Bhakti Devi, she's our guru of how to love, how to serve, and how to please Krishna. And I was reflecting on this, you know, when you think about it, whatever we do in life, in order to be successful really in any endeavor, it has to be infused. We have to infuse it with some heart, right? Some love. We need to be devoted to it to some extent, right? If, you know, whether you're working on a degree at a university or working in some occupation or job, or working on being a good partner, being a good parent, or gaining knowledge, or maybe you're working on a 200 or 500-hour yoga teacher training. There has to be some element of, you have to be devoted to it, right? To have some success. We have to put some heart into it. Or we fail, right? So I was also remembering how Jesus Christ said, be hot or be cold, but if you are lukewarm, I spit you out. So yeah, I'd say the goal of bhakti is that our hearts will melt in the fire of bhakti like a molten lava, rather than existing like cold, hard, calcified stone, which is where I so often find myself. So yeah, so some element of love has to be there. Serving in love needs to be there to be successful. What do you think? You agree with that? I think that's true. Yes, okay, I agree. So we don't usually think about it, but yeah, some element of devotion needs to be added to any endeavor. And then acts of devotion, when they're offered to the Supreme Beloved, that's bhakti. Whatever gifts you've been given have been given by God. And when those gifts are activated or deployed in service to the divine, that's bhakti. So I wanted to speak a little bit about the divine feminine being the compassionate side of God. You know, in cultures all over the world, the divine feminine is seen as more approachable, more compassionate. In Catholicism, Mother Mary, right? The Beatles sang, I wish I could remember the tune, but when I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be, right? In Asia, Kuan Yin is the goddess of compassion. In mystic Judaism, the Shekinah is a term for the divine feminine aspect of God that's associated with, she's associated with love and compassion and healing. So Sri Radha is the goddess of compassion. She is Krishna's compassionate nature. And the path of bhakti is, again, her expansion. So all the goddesses that you've heard of from India, Goddess Saraswati, Lakshmi, Parvati, even the fierce goddesses like Kali, are all expanded from Sri Radha for different purposes in this world. And my guru, Srila Prabhupada, prayed for her blessings before he set foot on this American soil. And therefore, I feel like he was successful in his mission of teaching Bhakti Yoga. And he taught us that if you have a prayer, to place it in the hand of Sri Radha, and she will plead your case to Krishna. Maybe if you've been to a Hare Krishna temple somewhere, a lot of times you see the Radha Krishna deities, Radharani will have her right hand up to bless you. So if you have a prayer, place your prayer in her hand, and she will recommend you to Krishna. And the way Srila Prabhupada described it so beautifully, he said, and even if you are a rascal number one, and rascal is a really bad word in India. I mean, in the US, we have reruns of the Little Rascals. I don't know if you guys ever saw that. They're so cute, running around town with their donkey. And so we kind of think rascal's a really cute word, but in India, rascal's a really bad word. So Prabhupada said, even if you are a rascal number one, Sri Radha will recommend you to Krishna and say, she is better than me. He is better than me. Please accept her. Please accept him. So Radha and Krishna, they share a dance of love, and their play together is like, because they're one, kind of one in two forms, right? Their play is considered to be like a child playing with her own reflection in a mirror. They're one, but they become two in order to enjoy these pleasure pastimes together. And they are eternally inviting us, all living beings, to join them in this divine dance of love, a universal dance of love in beloved community. So Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. spoke about this ideal of a beloved community where people would not be judged by the color of their skin, but rather the content of their hearts. And, our hearts are meant to be full of love for the Supreme, but also inclusive of all living beings, not only humans. I feel like the path of Bhakti goes so much further than the United Nations Declaration of Human Life, because it includes all living beings. And in our culture, we have a pyramid of power where humans are at the top, and you see humans are at the top, and the earth, the animals, the plants, the trees, the whole environment is down below. But I think the path of Bhakti is meant for reversing or, yes, victory, reversing or inverting that pyramid of power and placing ourselves at the bottom in the mood of how can I serve? How can I serve the earth and the animals and the plants and the trees and the environment and all living beings in a spirit, and God in a spirit of humility? So Cupid, or mundane love, enchants the entire world, but it's described that Krishna in his divine beauty enchants even Cupid himself. And Sri Radha enchants Krishna, the enchanter of Cupid. So I want to share some beautiful prayers with you, and I hope you don't mind if I say them in Sanskrit and then in English. I just want you to hear the beautiful cadence of the Sanskrit chanting. So here's one. This is a prayer to Sri Radha. I hope you like it. Devi dukha kulasagarotare duyamanam ati durgatam janam tam kripaya prabalanokayat bhutam prapaya swapada pankajalayam. Oh goddess, kindly hear this unfortunate person who is now drowning in an ocean of pain. Place her in the sturdy boat of your mercy and ferry her across to the wonderful realm of your lotus feet. Here's another one I like. Radhe Vrindavanadi se Karanam Rita Vahini Kripaya Nitapadabja Dasyam Mayam Pradiyatam. O Srimati Radharani, O Queen of Vrindavan, you are a river flowing with the nectar of mercy. Please be kind to me and give me a little service at your lotus feet. And here's one. It's a prayer to Radha and Krishna together. And in this one, the poet is actually praying to his tongue, which is funny, right? But he's begging his tongue, dear tongue, please try to drink the sweet names of Radha and Krishna. Oh, my tongue, you are overwhelmed with the desire for material enjoyment. Please hear my instructions. Always remain deeply absorbed in drinking the nectarian loving sweetness of the divine and beautiful names of Radha and Krishna. The name of Sri Radha is ever blissful and is divine ambrosia. Radhika's name is very sweet and enchanting and is the abode of complete fulfillment and satisfaction. With great care, my dear tongue, you should eagerly mix and blend this ambrosial name of Radhika in the wonderful sweet condensed milk of the name of Krishna. Now add to that mixture the sweet fragrance of love and affection, which is both cool and delightful. With great joy and ecstasy, drink this nectar day and night. No longer will there remain on the tongue a thirst for mundane enjoyment, for these wonderful transcendental tastes will fulfill all of your desires. And then the poet begs for delight and ecstatic rapture in the hearing and chanting of the divine names of Radha and Krishna. So in conclusion, Bhakti to me means to live and to serve in a personal relationship with the divine couple who have many names, but in Bhakti we call Radha Krishna, divine masculine, and the divine feminine dancing together in a loving relationship. And it's interesting that Srila Prabhupada, my guru, he always translates the word bhakti not as just love or even devotion, but he translates the word bhakti as loving service. So a personal bhakti goal for me is unconditional loving service to that divine couple, celebrating the diversity of all living beings as beloved sparks of their energy. And I pray to be an instrument of their loving compassion to help them heal this suffering world, and this is my prayer, to live without pretending, to speak without offending, to hear without defending, and to love without expecting. So thank you all so very much. And if you have any reflections or questions, I'm happy to try to speak with you.
Amazing. Oh my goodness, I love it. Can we send so much love and high vibes to dear Rukmini?
Okay.
Oh my goodness, that was so beautiful. I think that for sure, I've taken the most notes from your session. So many nuggets and so much wisdom. And because you shared some notes in advance, I captured some in the chat. But I love what you ended with. To live without pretending, to speak without offending, to hear without defending, and to love without expecting. And as I hear that, it's like, oh my goodness, that's who I want to be. That's what I want to be. And if I'm honest with myself, I see that I fall short in those areas. But yet being in association with people like yourself, people who have been committed, like you said in the beginning, how do you become sincere? You practice. You associate with people who are sincere and you practice. And so even in myself, where I see my shortcomings, I'm grateful to be in association with people like yourself. So thank you so much. For those who have questions, we'll take Q&A if you want to raise your virtual hand or get our attention. I'll keep an eye out for that. And maybe just, if I can just put out there, being a part of a yoga community here at Happy Jack Yoga, and the reality is the majority of the students these days in the Western world are women, which is beautiful. And in a world where there aren't as many, unfortunately, there aren't as many opportunities to connect with the divine feminine, or it's not as much clarity of like, well, how, there's Buddha and Jesus and Allah and Muhammad and Krishna, and the beautiful thing about our tradition from India is that there are many goddesses. And I guess maybe a question that I hear sometimes is like, how can we cultivate that relationship with the divine feminine? Who can we look to? What can that look like in a world where there unfortunately can be a male dominance or a male majority? How could we do that? How could any of us truly begin to cultivate that?
Thank you. That's a beautiful question. I think, whether we're men or women, masculine or feminine, it's about softening the heart, opening the heart, offering the heart. So that's the path, because, let's face it, there are women who are more hard-hearted than some men, right? But very often, these scriptures are written by male renunciates for other male renunciates. And sometimes they're warning people about family attachment and that sort of thing. So I think sometimes women are exiled or feel left out, but really, whoever we are, it's about offering the heart, opening the heart, softening the heart. And sometimes too much renunciation makes the heart hard. So, whatever we're doing in our lives, if you have family, if you're working at a career, working at a yoga practice, or whatever you're doing, I think it's a matter of offering the work that you do, the actions that you do, the offering your mind, offering your heart, offering your work. This is the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita, Krishna spoke to Arjuna on a battlefield, right? So we're each on our own large or small battlefields each day. And if Bhagavad Gita was spoken right on a battlefield, that means it can apply to my little battlefield as well. Maybe with my partner, my kids, my job situation, whatever it is. So whatever it is we're doing, whatever, as I said before, whatever abilities you have, those are gifts given by God. And if we don't use them for God, I think then they will sabotage us. They will sabotage our lives. So use your gifts as an offering of bhakti to to God by any name, whichever name resonates with you. In bhakti, we say Krishna or Govinda, Radha Krishna. So that's what I would say. Focus on softening the heart, cultivating the, sometimes men will say, oh, women are so emotional, right? But bhakti is about cultivating, uncovering the spiritual emotions of the heart. It's not meant to remain in the headspace as a function of some kind of mental or mental gymnastic exercise. It's meant to sink deep down to the heart space, and that's bhakti. And I think many people on the path of bhakti, even on the path of bhakti, do remain in that kind of headspace. So I think it's a very active, dynamic intention to sink down to awaken the emotions, the spiritual emotions of the heart. So I hope that's helpful.
Very helpful. Beautiful. I'm seeing the acknowledgements here. We've had a couple of questions in the chat. Nobody's raised their virtual hand yet. Love to bring someone on live. This is an interesting question, which probably some of us have heard of and reflected on. So gender identification has become a heated debate in current society. Contemporary religious and political leaders have condemned the use of terms other than male and female and have legislated these are the only terms to be used legally. Some people express an identity preference known as non-binary. Non-binary is an umbrella term for people who don't identify exclusively as male or female. When I first heard this term, I was thinking that non-binary is actually an accurate description of the nature of the true self, the soul within the body. What are your thoughts on this topic?
Interesting. It is an interesting question. Actually, the texts in Bhakti describe that the nature of the soul is feminine in relationship. As an expansion of Sri Radha, the divine feminine, we are feminine by nature in relationship to Krishna, the divine masculine. But yeah, people should be, I feel that people need to be free to express themselves from wherever they are and find their own identity from wherever they are. I'm thinking I have to share a funny story. Many years ago in Berkeley, there was someone who wrote a letter to my guru, Srila Prabhupada, and said, I want to become a devotee of Krishna, and I want to move into the ashram, but I just don't know which ashram to move into because, I don't know really if I identify as a woman or if I identify as a man. And Srila Prabhupada was always so pragmatic and practical and actually kind of funny as well. And he responded to this person and said, just pick one and stick with it. So, so whoever you are, wherever you are, however you identify, offer your own loving, intrinsic self, offer your heart to Krishna, and Krishna will accept you. It's not a matter of masquerading as someone else, trying to be something that you're not, but just whatever gifts you have, offer them to Krishna in loving devotional, serving in devotion. Yeah. So I hope that's helpful. Be practical and offer your gifts to divinity. And I think, yeah, there's some very destructive things coming out of our government, our US government right now. And that's why I asked for that prayer in the beginning. Many, many people are suffering. But sometimes we ask, well, why is there so much suffering in the world? And maybe that is the reason, so that we tend to turn inward when there's suffering. Do we turn inward when there's not suffering? Maybe, sometimes. But I think more definitely when we're in a situation of great suffering, we do tend to turn inward, pray to God. What did they say? World War I, they said, there are no atheists in the foxholes.
I love that. Thank you so much, Rukmini. Beautiful, beautiful response. We got a question over in the UK. Let's get our friends Sarah and George on the line. Welcome, welcome.
Hi, thanks for your talk. I had a question. Where's the best place to learn more about Radha? Because I've learnt a lot about Krishna, and we've done a little bit of the Divine Feminine with Jack. But is there? I know that presumably she's in the 10th canto, the Srimad Bhagavatam. I haven't got there yet. Is that the best place to find out more, or is there a text specifically?
Well, you can read Srimad Bhagavatam, you can get to the 10th canto, but you can also read Prabhupada's Krishna book, which he wrote very early on, and there's lots of stories of Sri Radha there. He wrote the Krishna book as a summary study of the 10th canto because he didn't know if he would live long enough to get to the 10th canto. But there's also a wonderful book that's written by one of my god sisters called Bhakti Shakti that I would highly recommend. It's all about Sri Radha and the feminine goddesses who expand from her and the whole theology of the divine feminine on the Bhakti path. It's a beautiful book, Bhakti Shakti by Pranada Kamtwa.
Okay, thank you. Because it calls to me, but it's not something that I have actually read the Krishna book. I read it before I read the Srimad Bhagavatam. I'm on the 3rd canto, so I'm working my way through. But
yeah, just to give you some context, like we're talking Rukmini, just a couple of months ago during, what is it, Bhadra Purnima, is when Sarah and George got a copy of Srimad Bhagavatam, and they're reading the entire thing, all the verses, all the purports, start to finish in 2025. And they just got their first malas this week. So I love your enthusiasm and you're asking the right person. Sorry, continue, Sarah.
I was just going to say, I like the idea, but when I read the Krishna book, it seemed, I actually had quite a negative reaction to it because I felt, because I hadn't read the rest of the book, it seemed quite sexist and quite, that he'd been effectively quite mean to these girls by just, falling in love with them and hanging out and then just bogging off and hanging out with all these wives and not ever going back. And it's like, well, it didn't resonate with me. It actually made me feel quite negative towards it. So that's why I'm reading the book, so I can obviously get to that point where I've got the understanding. But yeah, it would be nice to have a separate book on her because ISKCON's all about Krishna, Radha, and I don't feel like I know enough. So thank you for that. That's great.
Very good. And you're in the UK. Where are you in the UK?
We're in Kent, right at the bottom.
Southeast.
Okay.
Under
Okay. So at the Bhaktivedanta Manor, there's a woman temple president there whose name is Vishaka Devi. And I highly suggest you go meet her. And she wrote a beautiful book that I love that's very candid. She talks about starting life as an atheist. And it's called 12 years, 11 years, 12 years, 11 months.
We've
and
just
we bought it on Kindle, but we haven't read it yet.
Yeah, just bought it.
It's great.
Yeah.
So she will respond to a lot of your triggers. And those Gopi girls in Vrindavan who they are actually expansions of Krishna. So they are expanded from Radha and they are actually part of his own self. Yeah. And the painful pastimes that you read, these pastimes of union and then separation and then union and separation increase the love.
Yeah.
And that union and separation is described to be like, you know how a river needs 2 banks so that it can flow swiftly? So the bank of union and the bank of separation are the 2 banks on the river of love to help it flow smoothly. And he does come back.
Yeah, no, yeah, I guess I wasn't reading it in a sufficiently educated way, but we're working our way through it.
I've got
great.
Another quick question, which is on Divine Feminine, which is how does Lakshmi fit in with Bhakti and Radha?
Yeah, because we just did a financial freedom course at the Bhaktivedanta Manor, which was really interesting, talking about money and spirituality. So they were obviously talking about Lakshmi, weren't they?
Yeah, Lakshmi is a word for money or wealth So Lakshmi is the goddess of fortune or wealth. And she is expanded from Sri Radha, just as Lakshmi's consort is Narayan or Lord Vishnu. He's also expanded from Krishna. But Krishna is kind of God at home. He takes off his crown, he takes off all the, just plays. And Vishnu and Lakshmi are kind of God at work.
Right.
So they're maintaining the universe, helping people fulfill their different desires. So she's the goddess of wealth, but she has a name that's Chanchala. So which means flickering. So when people try to pray to the goddess of wealth without her Lord Narayan, she doesn't stay. She only stays with her Lord. So wealth is always flickering. Like, what do gamblers say? Lady luck, right? Lady luck. She's always flickering, right? So they're kind of in this world. They're maintaining the cosmic manifestation. She is his consort. And because she's in a mood a little bit more, if I may, because she is in this mood of opulence, wealth, and her Lord is Lord Narayan, she's not able to enter Vrindavan, which is the land of sweetness, where the opulence is kind of abated, and Krishna's barefoot, he's just playing, like a little kid running around, stealing butter and stealing all kinds of stuff, stealing people's minds. So she actually tries to enter into the rasa dance, but she's not allowed because she's in this mood of opulence. She's not, like the cowherd girls of Vrindavan, they're making cow dung patties, sticking them on walls, and, very sweet village life. So she's in this mood of reverence and opulence. So there's actually a place in Vrindavan across the Yamuna River from Vrindavan called Lakshmi Van, where Lakshmi is supposed to be eternally performing austerities to get the association of Krishna. So something about Lakshmi Devi.
Yeah, thank you. That was
Thank you.
fantastic.
I hope it helps. So if you want money, make sure you offer it to Krishna. You have to give those donations. Otherwise, she's flickering. She may be with you one day and Lady Luck may be gone the next day, right?
I love that. Great question. Beautiful response. And just to make a connection, because Sarah and George, you've watched with one of our courses, the Hare Krishna, the mantra, the movement, and the Swami that started it all. So that's the husband of Vishaka who wrote this book that Rukmini is recommending. And we got to meet them actually a couple months ago, Rukmini, at the Govardhan Eco Village. So you're getting connected with the right spiritual leaders. Beautiful.
Actually, they were partners in making that film. She's the cinematographer, and so the two of them did it together. So she's wonderful. Be sure to meet her at when you go by the manor. But her book is a treasure. I recommend it to every man and woman I know. It's wonderful.
I love it. Amazing. Well, thank you so much. Let's send some love, high vibes. Sarah and George, Team UK, thank you. We got just a couple minutes left. Maybe we'll see if we can get one more of these hands, but then want to be respectful of Rukmini's time and everyone's time. Karen, are you able to come on video and ask? There you go. We'll get you on mute.
See, two hands up. Celia also.
Welcome.
Hare Krishna. Am I on?
You're on. It's great to see you.
Great to see you.
Are you in Switzerland?
Yes.
Yeah.
Welcome. Thank you. Yeah, I'm so happy that I caught you. My question was a little bit of something that I think I kind of touched on a little bit at our quantum retreat in January on the gazebo there.
With us at Eco Village with her two lovely children.
Yeah. They're over there swinging on this swing over there. I don't know if you can see them there. But anyway, so yeah, my question, just like if I can sort of somehow consolidate the thought, which is like a little bit about this sort of feminine divine aspect that I just really haven't heard mentioned a lot in the Bhakti things. And maybe I'll have to read Bhakti Dasi and the other books you mentioned. But it's sort of like about sexuality, sensuality, and this kind of concept within other traditions and worldviews that like the femininity derives power from sexuality and from creation, like from creating life, or giving life, giving birth, and I guess about this, a lot of the talks that you hear about, that I've heard anyways, about lust and things like this, they do, in at least from what I've been exposed to so far, is mostly from a like the way male-bodied people experience lust and attraction and sexuality, and then I'm also conflicted because I'm like, well, then when you see devotees, they're not looking like people that are, you know, sexually repressed in a way, but also not. I just, yeah, I it's a big question in the whole sphere of my journey, my bhakti journey. So whatever
Yeah.
you have to offer on that topic would be.
Thank you very much. Yeah, a lot of those voices are coming from male renunciates who are, very frankly, sometimes they're really, really trying very hard to be celibate monks, and sometimes they often fail. Sometimes they're looking at pornography or doing things that you know, as in India they say, drinking water underwater on a fast day. So sometimes people are struggling with those desires. But you know, when we talk about the expansions of Sri Radha, the goddess of the earth, right? I should have mentioned her before. But she's expanded from Sri Radha. She's considered the wife of Vishnu in the pastime of Lord Varaha. She is the wife of Vishnu. And, you know, very often women are dissed because they, you know, do represent hearth and home and family and kids and beauty and, you know, all the things that the male renunciates are trying to give up, right? So those voices can be really loud and really strong and can be very denigrating and discouraging to women. So, you know that you are sacred and you know, we come from that sacred source of Sri Radha. And like, for example, like when a woman is in her time of menstruation, right? So some people will say, oh, you're contaminated, stay away, don't come to the temple, don't do anything, don't touch me, don't look at me. But really, that's the time when the goddess of the earth, it's considered the goddess of the earth is regenerating herself. So it's a time for women to also rest and rejuvenate and go deep within yourself so that the rest of the month you have more energy and more strength to love and to serve. So, you know, things can be, you can spin it one way, you can spin it another way, but maybe we do need to hear more from the women. So let's do that. Speak up, speak out, but tenderly, graciously. You have to be, you know, what I was in a class the other day, someone was talking about being angry at the world situation. And he was a guy, a nice devotee, God brother. And he was saying, you can be joyful and be angry at the same time. So, so maybe we joyous bhaktas on the bhakti path and still be angry at some of these things as well. So I hope that's helpful.
Haribol, thank you. Yes.
Love it.
100%.
Amazing. Well, let's send some love, high vibes over to Karen, calling in from the park. Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's more questions in the chat, but I think what I want to do is, Rukmini, you've kindly shared your contact information. So I'm going to put that in the chat, and we're going to put it in the description underneath the video as well, so that for those who want to stay connected with Rukmini, have that ability. So I'll just briefly mention it's urbandevi.com, rukminiwalker.com, of course on Facebook, and then we've got your email address there as well. But this is a living legend. We're in the presence of a living legend, one of the earliest disciples of Srila Prabhupada, a dear Shiksha Guru, great teacher for all of us. And thank you so much for taking your time. Really encourage everyone to stay connected, to stay in touch. And certainly with our community, you'll be back. We'll be, I'm sure by popular demand, we'll have you back for a satsang in the near future. But friends, in 1 hour from now, we've got another divine feminine another woman speaker who's going to be leading here at the Bhakti Yoga Conference, Kishori Gopi. But in the meantime, please join me in sending so much love and high vibes to Rukmini. And my friends, make it an amazing day. Namaste.
Namaste.
Haribol,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Lord, thank you,
Glories to
Rukmini.
Prabhupada.
Haribol.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you.